Hi, I'm James Shillinglaw, and I'm here with a familiar face if you've been watching us in the past. We're here with Alex Sharpe, who's president and CEO of Signature Travel Network. Now, obviously, Signature Travel Network, like other agency groups, has been working with their members to help them survive and ultimately thrive through the COVID-19 crisis. And we're going to talk to them about that, as well as a major uh, charitable initiative that they launched actually in December, and now there's an update on that. So we're going to talk about all of that and more on Insider Travel Report. So Alex, how are you? Where are you now?
I'm doing well. I'm like everyone. I'm home. I'm home. But last week I did something monumental. I booked an airline ticket,
Oh
and
my God! Don't say it ain't so. And where to?
we are myself and our board of directors decided we had to have an in-person meeting. They were sick of looking at my scruffy wannabe beard on a Zoom call. So we're gonna meet in Charlotte, North Carolina for a couple of days and have a board meeting. But I've never
Wow!
been
Wow!
so excited to go to Charlotte in my life.
Yeah. Well, you're probably gonna have to lose the beard and the whole deal now, though.
I don't know. I think when you're Irish, Swedish, German, this takes a long time. You have to be quarantined for a couple
Yeah.
of
Don't.
months.
If there's one thing out of COVID you don't want to lose, maybe, right?
I don't know. My wife would like me to lose it.
I thought about it, but I don't think so. I don't know. We'll have to see. The last time I had a beard was in college, and that didn't work out so well. But anyway, so let's talk a little more substantive here about how has Signature Travel Network been working to help its travel agency members and advisors to survive through this crisis? What have you introduced?
Well, like everyone, it's been, you go through those different stages, right? So there were a little bit at the beginning was just understanding what it could mean. And then very quickly, I think you know me well enough to know I try not to focus on the stuff that I can't change. And I didn't have a vaccine and don't have a vaccine for this. So
You
we
sure? Are you sure
really,
you don't have one in behind you there? I don't know. I mean, that's what we need.
and we do need it. I keep asking everyone, but we quickly pivoted to how can we help them today? And initially, it was about understanding what's ahead of them, making some business decisions. Then it quickly became about the CARES Act and the PPP program. So, that when that first came out, we spent the weekend with an attorney and a few of our members and my team digging in and understanding it so that, the next day on Monday, we presented it to everyone. And gosh, we have 98% of them have been funded.
Really?
And so
By those
we've been
programs? Yeah.
by the programs,
Wow.
and there's only 3 members in our entire network that have not been funded yet, and something squirrely with their paperwork. But based on the size of our network, 210 members, we have the ability to dig in with every single one of them individually, and that's really what we did. And now we're in that phase of helping them understand the forgiveness side of the PPP loans, right? Turning them into grants, but also, gosh, just going through the mechanics of, what does their cash flow look like? What's their run rate look like? What decisions are they going to make, from a personnel perspective, from a cost perspective? And then finally, and maybe the one exciting part of this whole thing is, what do they want their agency to look like when they come out of this, right? Are they charging fees today? If not, let's talk about that. Let's come up with together, and talk about a fee schedule, or what does their advisor compensation look like, either from an IC perspective or from an employee W-2 perspective? How do we help them reshape their agencies? Because words have never been true, right? Don't waste a crisis. And so the survive piece, as you mentioned, is critical. But the thrive piece on the other side is really where we're going to be judged, right? Are they going to come out stronger and better for it? So
Yeah,
that's been
no,
our focus.
absolutely.
That's been our focus now for 3 months.
Yeah, now, I mean, in terms of your own organization, I assume you've had to do some cuts and furloughs or something like that. You already had a fairly lean organization anyway, but I don't know how many cuts you had to make, or at least put people on furlough for a while.
Yeah, so we looked at it. Any cuts, because we are a small organization, a lean organization. Any cuts are painful, right? They're part of the family. But I do feel pretty fortunate. We've been very conservative through the years, making sure financially we're set up for the future. We've really always been focused on not over hiring. So we let 12 people go, which is about 15% of our staff. And, a painful day for us. We did it April 2nd. And we felt like that positioned us for the next several months to really dig in and still provide our members the service that they were looking for and the partners. So what I've been talking about is, our goals are to have the lowest attrition of members and advisors, and then also to be the very best partner we can be. So again, taking advantage during this time where our suppliers are down, people and resources. How do we help them come up with the right marketing plans and dig in, figure out how we, get higher utilization on future travel credits and all that kind of stuff, right? How do we do some of the heavy lifting for them? Because my ask is, right, at the end of this, I want our disproportionate share of their marketing and sponsorship dollars. I want them to invest more heavily with us. And, so in the meantime, we have to make sure we're supporting them properly. And I feel like that's happening. And that's really been at the core of what we're all about anyway. So thankfully, we didn't have to do more major cuts back in March and April. And we've really positioned ourselves to be there. But now we're anxiously awaiting this comeback, right? We want things to get open and get going, because the longer it goes, the harder it is for everyone.
Well, that's true, and absolutely. But and of course, I know you unfortunately had to cancel or postpone your conference in October, although you are having your owners meeting in September, correct?
That's the plan. We're, as a cooperative, owner-owned, and our owners just felt like it was so critical for them to get together. I guess it'll be a group. It won't be a group hug, because I don't think we're allowed to do that, or we won't be allowed to do that even in September. But the strength of our organization has always been the exchange of information and ideas, and we just felt like it was critical to get our owners together to do that. Obviously, a meeting of that size, of a few hundred people, is easier to pull off, or we believe will be easier to pull off, than a conference with a few thousand people. And so we did decide to postpone the conference. We didn't want to put undue pressure and strain on our hotel partners that are international, on any of our partners, or the agency owners and their advisors, to, even though they don't pay, the advisors don't pay to come to our conference, they still got to get there and pay for a hotel room and all those types of things. And that's hard to justify in the wake of layoffs and, salary cuts and that kind of thing. So we've just tried to be thoughtful about it, but I don't know frankly, what the right answer is, but this feels right today.
Yeah, no, and of course the suppliers themselves, your preferred suppliers who actually help fund that conference, they're hurting as well, and may not be the right time for them. And that's the story I'm getting from a lot of agency groups right now. There's pretty much nothing left for the remainder of the year, except for a few straight things I haven't heard from yet. But yeah, I'm very unhappy that we can't see you in October, but maybe we'll see you in September. We'll see what happens. Now, how have your agency members really been reacting to this crisis? And I guess the corollary follow-up, are we starting to see some bookings is this the right time to start to go back to clients and ask for bookings for later this year or 2021?
Yeah, I think well, for us, we've kind of broken it down into phases. We believe that, obviously the low hanging fruit are those future travel credits, right? Whether they're cruises or tours or whichever, these are people with a gift certificate in their pocket. So let's get them rebooked first. They're probably the most inclined. And for us, we have well over $100 million in future travel credits, right? So there's a lot of opportunity there. And in many, many cases, they're either getting their first commission on that, or their second commission on that. So there's revenue to be generated. So that's kind of the first step. And we're pushing hard on that front. The second one is, how do we identify those who took refunds, right? Who don't have a future travel credit, but intended on traveling and couldn't, right? How do we identify those, or our best prospects? And then the question is, what's right to sell them? And so we're seeing a lot of 21 bookings, and we're starting to see some very close in 2020 bookings. People just need to get away, right? Like, as excited as I was to go to Charlotte for a business meeting, people just want to get away. And,
yeah, absolutely.
And so, the advisors have to feel their way through that. Certainly now's not the time to convince someone that, you should go to such and such place in October this year. But there are those people who just need to move, right? I mean, you and I travel 150 days a year. I feel crazy. I'm in 100. This is day 126 of the hostage crisis. I mean, I need to move. I need to go somewhere.
Well, I just went
And
to
so
St.
we're finding
Augustine
that
this
there are
past
those
weekend.
guests.
I just went to St. Augustine this past weekend, so that was nice. It was a little thing, a little.
That's only an hour and a half drive.
I
That's
know, but
only an hour and a half
it's
drive for you
something.
from
It's not an
Orlando.
airplane flight, but it was nice to get away. But no, you're absolutely right, and I think there is. Everybody talks about the pent up demand and when is it going to happen, and yes, they have to get those future credits and rebook for next year. And that actually goes to the next question: is yeah, you're working with your advisors, but you also have to work a little bit with your suppliers, your preferred suppliers as well. And how are you doing that?
Well, there's a number of ways. I had a great call yesterday with Beds Online and their leadership team, and we're talking about, because they're such a global company, we were looking at how other markets were coming back, right? And in China, how quickly the domestic market came back. Obviously, not the international market because it's not open, but the domestic market right now is greater than it was a year ago today, right? And so they were saying, do we think we'll see the same thing in the US? And some of that depends on how much we're allowed to get outside the US. Does Mexico open, or how does it open? The Caribbean, what do those flights look like, and those types of things. So it's about options. But we do believe that, if we can get the right product in front of our advisors and then in front of their customers, that there's a lot of business to be had. And look, as much as we'd love to sell, 3-week FIT programs to Italy, you know, to get a 5-night stay at Paws Up, or to get someone to a great resort in the US, national parks or whatever it is, and to get a commission sooner than later, right? Not a 2021 or 2022 commission, is critical for these folks to keep the lights on and keep the engine running and that kind of thing, and continue to move forward. So it is about marrying the right product, getting the right training. Ignacio's been doing a lot of training for the network right now, lately, on North American destinations and content, and all different ways to pull it together. But you have to work closely with your partners on this as well.
Yeah, well, no, and Ignacio Mazza, your head of luxury travel, all that. I know Ignacio is famous for traveling all over the world and finding great places, but now he's going to have to sort of find those great places here in the domestic area too, right?
Well, I think the amazing thing is, when I talked to him about it and I said, hey, we need to pivot and look at this, he's like, well, he started rattling off place after place after place. I said, oh, so you know everything about the US too. I thought it was just everywhere else. So he's in his element. He loves training. He loves, what I always find amazing, and I think the best trainers, the best people can do this, is he can speak to, that newer advisor that maybe, or that advisor that doesn't sell domestic very much. And then he can get to the expert, and everyone's going to leave with at least one or two things, new tools, right, that they can implement when they get back. And his energy and passion and all that kind of thing. I mean, you can't be down after speaking with Ignacio, or listening to him on a webinar for half an hour. So that's great
No, I
news.
know. I think there's a webinar next week he's scheduled to be on. I can't wait to hear him. And he is really an incredible traveler and someone who knows so much about what's going on in the world, and as you said, now domestically. So he's a great asset for you. Let's talk a little bit about a favorite topic. I know last December you launched your Travel Elevates sort of charitable organization. First of all, can you describe what this group is and how it works?
Yeah, sure. So Travel Elevates is our nonprofit, our 501c3 for Signature. It was really born out of a trip that we did to Kenya. And we were with Mikado, and we got to see all the elements of the great nonprofit work that they do, and we participated in many of them. But kind of the icing on the cake at the end of it was, we were in what they call Harambee Center in Makuru, which is a large slum in Nairobi. And we noticed that they had this little computer center, and we take a lot of pride in our technology, and our technology person, Karen, was with us. And it was overrun. I mean, people waiting outside to get into this little computer center. Maybe they had 20 computers or something like that. And one of the members noticed that there was an empty building at the back of the lot. And he said, well, what's that going to be? And Dennis Pinto said, well, that'll be the next computer center. Mm-hmm. And before we left the property, the members and I had talked, and we were committed to building a computer center there.
That's great.
And so it was a great opportunity to bring people together, right? The people on the trip. Since then, when they broke ground last year and they started doing the work, then some of our travelers actually were traveling to Harambe Center as part of their Mikado program and said, "Hey, what are they doing back there?" When it was explained, they said, "We'd like to give a donation too." So we raised the money. It opened in December. It's obviously closed right now because of the pandemic, but it's been so well received. And so the thinking when I came back was, how do we highlight all these great things that our partners do around the world? For a couple of reasons. One is because it's great work and people should know about it. But two, I believe in the advisor's hands, they can utilize it as part of the program that they're putting together for the customer, and it enhances that experience in a big way. You know, there's no doubt you can do amazing things, and I'll use Kenya as the example, but that day in Harambe Center is a day no one will ever forget. And so there's certainly a philanthropic piece to this, but there's also a commercial piece that if the advisor is instrumental in putting that together, and that family or that couple has an amazing time, it's going to tie them closer to that advisor. They're going to come back and look for the next opportunity. So Travel Elevates really does three things. One is we highlight all of our partners and the works that they're doing. So if it's Tread Right, or if it's, what they're doing at Trails of Indochina or whichever. So we try and highlight those things so that our advisors have access to it and they can incorporate it into their itineraries.
No,
The
that's
second thing, yeah, and that's a big job. The second thing is to highlight some of those in our marketing material, to just shine a light on destinations and opportunities for the consumers. Hopefully it will drive interest both in the nonprofit, but also in the destination. And then the third thing is we fund some of those nonprofits in the form of a grant so that they can do the work. So as much as I'd like to go get my hands dirty, it doesn't make much sense for me to take a bunch of people to Cambodia to dig a well. But our partners at Trails of Indochina do that. And they can build a well for $300 and give fresh water to a small village forever. And so by highlighting that, and then potentially, using a program like that, or like we did with the computer center, and we give them a grant, I think we can have tremendous impact. And so we started in December. We were well on our way to, kind of setting it up with founding sponsors and all the rest of it when COVID hit.
right.
And we didn't feel comfy saying, okay, such and such cruise line or tour operator, you committed to $100,000 or you committed to this, pay up now. That doesn't make sense. But yet there's never been a time in our history where it's more needed, right? These destinations are decimated because there's no US travelers there. And so we felt like it was critical that we get going. And so we've launched the website.
Yeah, you
Which
just
I
did
think
that
is,
just that did this week, right? And we wrote about it earlier this week, correct?
yeah, it's a beautiful website. It highlights some of those things that we talked about. And then at our owners meeting, we will do a fundraising dinner, which will include partners and our members, of course, and we'll probably auction off some trips and do things like that. But the idea is to just offer the first couple of grants. They don't have to be $1 million grants. They can be small grants to get people started, to do something positive and give us something to talk about in our, with our customers and get people excited about. So we just felt like, there's a lot of places to save money and to pull back, but I didn't want this to be part of it. I just think you have to lead by example. And what we've said all along is if you're serving other people through this pandemic, you're going to be just fine, right? Focus on others and we're going to do okay. And so we're practicing what we preach and off we go. We'll see how we do.
No, that sounds great. And what's the URL for that website?
Yeah, it's travelelevates.org.
Okay. And that's
Right.
that just launched this week, and you're not going to give up on the charitable part, and rightly so. As you said, because when people can't travel, these places suffer, and it's going to be hard for them. If we think we have it bad, the places that depend on travel and tourism have it a lot worse.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you just think about some of these destinations, or if tourism accounts for 10% of the GNP worldwide. Imagine what it is in some of these Caribbean islands, or in Mexico, or in Southeast Asia, or in Africa. It's so critically important. So anything we can do to shine some light on those destinations, and also, give back a bit, I think will make us feel great. We always get more in return, right, when you give, and so we're excited about it. I know our team is excited about it. Our members are. So we're really pleased with where we are on that front.
No, that's great, and hopefully that's going to work out great for you and for the organization. Now, just generically, what do you think travel advisors should be doing right now to prepare for the future and hopefully the rebound that we all expect later this year?
Yeah, so I think it's not dissimilar to what I talked about earlier in reference to the agency owners, right? Each of these advisors, runs their own business in some way. If they're independent contractors, they absolutely run their own business. So I think it's about training, right? Where do you want your focus to be? Where can you have the greatest impact? Is it expedition? Is it domestic in the short term? Where do you need to become an expert? Where can you dig in? I think that's one. Two is your database. Your database is the most valuable thing you have beyond the knowledge that you can, give your customers. And so with a good database, a cleaned up database, our machine works really, really well on their behalf, right? We can go out and execute, and really pinpoint market to their customers and drive demand for them. But they have to have a clean database. And oftentimes, right, we've come through several awesome years in a row. You've never heard a travel advisor say, I've got plenty of time to do that, right? Their desks always look like a bomb went off, right? They're messy. They got sticky notes everywhere. They're hustling to keep up. And so now they, unfortunately probably have a moment, a beat to just kind of take a breath. And so I think they can really invest in the infrastructure, right? Database, training are the main things, understanding what their fee structure looks like, and then coming up with a game plan, right? How do I make sure if I've got 100 future travel credits out there, what's my goal? How do I get them all on the books? And then who's next in line? Really prioritize your database and create deeper interactions, right? I mean, what we're doing today is going to absolutely change the way travel is sold. There's been lots of advisors that have been virtual for a long time, but how many of them jump onto a Zoom call and really create that personal connection versus a telephone or a text or something like that? I think the whole world's gonna be looking to Zoom. We might be zoomed out by the time
There is
we're
going to
allowed to
become
fly.
a new verb, I think. Zoomed out or
Zoomed
zooming
out.
or something. I don't know.
But I do think that this is an element that advisors will use to create deep, personal, meaningful interactions with customers. And what gets me so excited, James, is there's never going to be a time where travel advisors are more valued than right after this is over. Now, right? I mean, who in their right mind would go it alone? Who in their right mind would call an OTA when across their banner on their homepage for weeks was like, "Don't call us."
Don't
Right?
call
4
us. I
times
know.
a
I
day
saw
too
that.
long, right? So look, we're seeing suppliers step up to the plate for advisors. It's nice to think they're just being nice guys. But in reality, I think they have identified how critical the advisor is going to be, more critical the advisor is going to be to this sales, the sales moving forward, and they're going to need us. And so I keep telling the advisors, yes, these are tough times, but come out the other side, be well prepared, right? Unfortunately, there's going to be fewer advisors, fewer agencies. There's going to be some attrition, but there's going to be greater demand for a travel advisor after this is over. People are going to want to use a travel advisor. So I actually think in 2021 that the revenue per advisor could be up. The overall sales volume for Signature probably won't be, but I think the revenue per advisor could be up, particularly if they implement things like fees and do some of these other things to target their customers properly.
Well, it does seem odd that I think somebody should publish a book called "It Takes a Crisis to Prove the Value of Travel Advisors." Every time we have one of these things, and this, of course, is probably the greatest crisis we've ever had, worse than 9/11, worse than the recession, worse than airline commission cuts. Hard to believe.
Yeah.
But this clearly once again proves the value of travel advisors. And I guess I feel you're right. There will be some attrition, but I think that as a career prospect, we could actually see a rebound. Maybe not in 2021, but in 2022, people will say this is a pretty good profession to get into, and maybe we'll get back up to those numbers. So we'll see what happens. Initially, I think there will be attrition, as you suggested, and then we'll see after that people will realize this is actually a really great career if you can make it work.
Oh, I agree. It's been interesting talking to, I think the industry's done a really good job over the last 3, 4 years in getting young people into this profession. And then this is the first, oh crap moment, to put it somewhat politically correct. A lot of the other advisors who have been through 9/11 and commission cuts and the Great Recession and all those things, certainly this has been bigger than that. But they know how to handle it, right? They're like, we'll get through it, we'll do it. Some of the young people freaked out. They've never been through this before. But I tell you, those that push through, they're going to be telling their kids, oh, that's nothing. I went through, COVID-19 and came out the other side, and look at our business. We'll be talking, this is historic,
Yeah.
right? What we're going through right now, it's historic, and not necessarily a good historic, but it's historic. And so, I really think our job, our legacy at Signature is how do we help people through that process? Right? If we got to take them by the hand and guide them through, we can do that. And I just feel really fortunate for that opportunity. I feel very fortunate for the size of our organization that provides that opportunity for us to be very personal and intimate with our members and the advisors. I wish we didn't have to go through it, but you're right. It will prove our value and the value of a travel advisor having been through this.
No, absolutely. And, I guess the only sad part of all of this is that we were looking forward to a real record-breaking year, even with the supposed presidential election effect, which everybody says is always a downer for travel, but I don't think that was going to happen this year. I think people still wanted to get away. And, I know from our business perspective too, I mean, this was going to be a banner year, and it just is disappointing, but we'll get through it, as you said. Now, I want to talk a little bit about you've been you and Signature have been a very strong supporter of American Society of Travel Advisors, ASTA. What have you been doing with ASTA during this period, and how have you been working with them?
I've just been so impressed with Zane and the team there, Eben and everyone. We're really, and I think all of the consortia, which is so heartening to me to see everyone kind of rally around, make commitments to ASTA. But, I'm on consortia committee calls with the leaders of all the consortia on a regular basis. We've utilized their tools. I mean, we had Peter Labassa did a great webinar for our group on just some of the legalities of what happens if in supplier default, or how do you handle these things. So we're leveraging all those resources, but what I found is just the confidence of ASTA has grown, right? Zane and Evan, really humble guys, but the confidence in terms of what they think they can get from the congressmen and the senators, the conversations they're able to have, because they've laid that groundwork for the last 4 years of first just educating people what the heck a travel agent is, right? And then what does ASTA mean, and how important is that, as constituents to these folks. And they've laid that groundwork, and now they're having meaningful conversations, right? I mean, SBA wants their feedback on the CARES Act, right? The senators that are presenting some of this stuff are asking for their information, for their feedback. And so I see this confidence growing, how they're dealing with, I would say the lion's share of our suppliers have acted admirably through this, generously through this. But those that haven't, ASTA has gone after them and said, hey, this isn't what we expect. We understand it's tough times, but this isn't what we expect as a partner. And so I've been really impressed with it, happy to be a small part of it, proud that we were, that we got involved with them when we did, and we're so invested. I think we have, 4 or 5 members on their board, not because we wanted to have members on their board, but because our members were so invested in ASTA, they wanted to run. We had lots of people run for their board and want to be involved. And I think that's healthy. And now we're seeing it, and we have for the last few years from the other networks as well. And there's no doubt, right? Especially under that ASTA banner, we're stronger together, right? This isn't about, well, Signature did this or Virtuoso did that or anything. It's about how do we come together? That's our industry association. And I think because of the way Zane and that whole team, how they operate, it makes it very easy for all of us to come together under that banner and kind of charge forward. So I couldn't be more proud of our industry. I mean, you think about just a few months ago, we were in the middle of AB5. Remember that craziness with
Oh yeah,
independent
no,
contractors
California,
in
right?
California? And to see their leadership role through this CARES Act and everything else, I just think it's been amazing. It's been really rewarding. Certainly far more value than anything we've ever contributed, right? And as I just think about what it would take to hire a team to do what ASTA's done, it would be impossible. And so it's been really good for us.
No, that's great. And you're right. They've done a fantastic job in lobbying for the assistance they did. And then the post lobbying in terms of correcting some of the issues that arose after people just couldn't get access to those funds. And it looks like, as you mentioned earlier, that your members have really benefited from the PPP and the SBA stuff that they've been able to get. And now, it was slow and there were some challenges, and the percentages of travel advisors and travel agencies getting that money have continued to rise. And of course, there still had to be more money, and there probably has to be some more money appropriated, but we'll see what happens with that. Now, I want to just leave this by saying, is there anything else you want to tell your members, your preferred partners, and even travel advisors in general about what Signature is doing and how this crisis might play out?
Well, to our members and our partners, we're in it together, right? We're here. But really, for the whole industry, I think now is such a time, right? Whenever there's strife like this, whenever there's, something bad happens in this industry, the beauty is the way people come together. The really sad part, the unfortunate part, is a lot of those people that we've come together with all these years, have been laid off in some cases, right? From the supplier partners or advisors or whatever it is. But we're still this huge travel family. And it extends far beyond just the US, right? And the advisors we have here. Our travel family extends to the corners of the globe, right? And it's just so important that we continue to support each other and try and move this forward and then stay positive, right? As I said, I'm not confident of a lot of things every day because there's some, there's always change and that, but I am very confident that the value of a travel advisor post-COVID will never have been higher, right? And that the future is very bright. But I realize that it's going to be a long summer and a tough fall before we get there. And so we have a lot of work to do, but I know together we can get it done.
Well, Alex, thank you very much for taking the time to talk about what you and Signature Travel Network are doing during this period. It's been a difficult time, but as you say, we'll emerge from the other side, hopefully stronger, and the travel industry will be stronger, and the value of a travel advisor will be much more recognized than ever before. But again, glad to see you're safe and healthy, and hopefully we'll see you at some point later in the year in person.
I hope so. Thanks so much. Thanks for everything you do.
I'm James Shillinglaw, and this is Insider Travel Report.